Greetings everyone, SoloFanDancer98 back at it again with another reaction. We're looking at the final part of the top 44 best Super Sentai movies of all time. So, let's get into it and see what the final 15 recommendations of this list are.
Next up, we have Bokenger vs. Super Sentai. This is considered a V-Cinema release that celebrates the 30th anniversary of the Super Sentai franchise. And this movie is set between episodes 42 and 43 of Bokenger. In this movie, the Bokengers team up with some legendary rangers to take on the Time Demon Cronus. We even get an appearance from Aka Red. This movie features pretty standard fan service that you would expect from a team-up, but what I really like about this one is that the guest rangers here are given quite a bit of time to shine. Some of these movies feature so many rangers and different characters that some of them can get lost in the shuffle, but this movie has a smaller, more intimate cast, so we can spend a little bit more time with the rangers that are here. And it's cool to see what the Rangers are up to in the current timeline. I especially love Tetsu, or Deca Break, being a mafia type and throwing people around while screaming Nazis. Like I said, this is a celebration movie, but it's really focused on the smaller cast of characters that's here. I think the movie is all the better for that. Next up is King Oger vs. Kyoryuger. This is a V-Cin X movie, and it is the 30th Versus film. This movie was released alongside King Oger vs. Don Brothers, but that film is incredibly short, so I'll be focusing on this one. This movie takes place during the events of episodes 32 and 33 of Kyoryuger, and after the events of the King Oger vs. Don Brothers movie. This is the most recent film on this list, featuring two fun teams, and I like the new team versus old team dynamic here. This movie features the old trope about the timeline being changed, and it results in us having an evil Gira that rules with an iron fist, and another world where Debos was never stopped. It's cool to see different sides of these universes from what we're used to, and I feel like all of these Kyoryu crossovers are good. Like, basically every crossover that features Kyoryuger is awesome, in my opinion. Like, the personalities on that team are just so huge, like you could probably put them with anybody and it would make for something that was worth watching. But that being said, King Oger are no slouches, and there's some good characters on that team as well, and I know that some people will say that this is here because of recency bias, and maybe that's true. But honestly, I would call it Kyoryuger bias, if anything.
Fair.
Next up at number 13 is Kamen Rider and Super Sentai Cho Superhero Taisen. This is a theatrical release, and it was the fourth and final Superhero Taisen movie. The catchphrase for this one is "Gather, the power of all heroes." And this movie takes place before episode 7 of Q Ranger and after episode 23 of Kamen Rider X-Aid. This is a team up with tons of fan service, but it focuses mostly on Q Ranger, X-Aid, and Jojer. In this movie, the game world from X-Aid attacks Earth and creates the Arena of Death, where our heroes must fight for the survival of Earth. Sounds like pretty standard fare, but honestly the story just serves to get everyone on the same screen, and if you like the characters that are featured here, this movie is a lot of fun, and it feels really big budget. But honestly, the reason that it's higher than the other Taisen movies is probably just because I vibe with some of the characters that are featured here, like Q Ranger and Kamen Rider X-Aid. So depending on how you feel about those series, your mileage may vary. This movie isn't quite as over the top about having every hero ever in one movie, but there are still quite a few here, and I enjoyed this movie quite a bit.
Fair enough.
Next up at number 12 is Kyoryuger Returns 100 Years After, and this is a V-Cinema release that of course takes place 100 years after the finale and focuses on the descendants of the original Rangers as they battle a new Deboth threat. In this movie, the Rangers from the future have repetitive colors and there's some funny banter where they get roasted for it, but we have blue, cyan, and navy, which are different shades of blue, and then we have silver and gray, which are basically the same thing, as well as violet, which I actually like a lot. And this movie has a really interesting take on the colors of each Ranger and what they actually represent. And although the future represented here isn't terribly different from present day, it's still cool to see familiar themes in a kind of mixed up setting. This movie is an absolute blast, and I would consider it an absolute standard of the Sentai franchise and a must-watch.
Sounds like it.
Next up at number 11 is Gokaiger vs. Gavin, and this is a theatrical film that takes place between episodes 44 and 47 of Gokaiger. With Metal Heroes being a retired franchise, what better way to introduce Gavin to a new generation than packaging him with the most popular Sentai of all time in Gokaiger? Gavin is a space sheriff, and the Gokaigers are space pirates, so this just feels natural and right. Not to mention, this movie feels big budget. Another one that I would have loved to watch on the big screen. In this movie, Gavin has a mission to capture the Gokaigers, but eventually he himself would become captured by a group of villains, and the Gokaigers have to rescue him, ironically. Gokaiger is extremely popular, and there is a lot of fan service here, as you would probably expect. Gavin himself, of course, is a throwback, and then you add to that the fact that the Gokaigers can become pretty much all the other Rangers, and this makes for a really cool dynamic with a cool, unique vibe that I can't quite put my finger on. Maybe it's because Gavin is so 80s, and the Gokaigers are a little bit more modern, it just leads to a great experience.
Fair enough.
This movie features legendary Toku actor Kinji Oba reprising his role as Gavin, and we even have appearances from his other famous roles as Battle Kinya and Dingy Blue. Also, we get a little dose of the Go Busters here. This is an explosive Toku space adventure, and if that doesn't make you want to watch it, I don't know what else will.
Sounds like a fun time.
Next up at number 10 is Zenkaiger vs. Kiramager vs. Senpaiger. This is a V-Sin X release that takes place after Zenkaiger and after the events of the Kiramager spin-off, Yodana 2. I'm sure somebody is gonna give me crap about putting this goofy-ass movie so high on the list, but the goofiness here just makes me smile, especially all of the food references and the constant eating. This movie features two really fun, entertaining, and super lighthearted Sentais, plus a collection of classic Red Rangers from the franchise in Senpaiger, and this makes for a really cool and nostalgic Sentai project that even if you're not a fan of Zenkaiger, you still won't want to miss this. The story here is nothing that's insane, but it is solid, and it does a really good job of bringing together these two teams, as well as Senpaiger, the team of classic Rangers, and I think the interactions here are mostly pretty charming, and they did a good job of getting the
Seriously, why all the food references? What was the point of the food?
most out of the likability of these characters. I feel like this movie is a really good mix of goofiness and fan service, and if you're in the mood for a lighthearted Sentai movie, you can do a lot worse than this one.
I won't lie, that's making me hungry now.
Next up at number 9 is Hurricaneger 10 Years After. This is a V-Cinema release, and it was the first ever 10 Years After movie of the entire franchise. This movie obviously takes place 10 years after the events of the show, and this movie shows why Nanami is so badass, because she will fight somebody even when she's only wearing a towel. It's really cool to see where they are now, including Iko's new band and Kota being a father now. In this movie, there have been bombings going on all over the world, and it turns out that Hurricane Dark is responsible, and he is none other than Yosuke, also known as Hurricane Red, who claims that the last 10 years have been a mistake, and he would refuse to elaborate. The other Rangers would have to solve this mystery, and of course, do a badass roll call and look awesome. It's a 10-year anniversary movie. Like, this movie is made specifically for the fans of the original series, and if that's you, it's an absolute no-brainer. Next up at number 8 is Q Ranger vs. Space Squad. This is a V-Sin X release that takes place 4 years after Q Ranger. We have, of course, Q Ranger, as well as appearances from some other Sentais and classic villains, and of course we have some Metal Hero characters, with an appearance from Jiraiya, which I think is freaking awesome. If you're a fan of Q Ranger or the Metal Heroes franchise, this one is for you.
Sounds like a fun time.
Next up at number 7 is the Abba Ranger 20th Anniversary movie, The Unforgivable Abare. This is a V-Sin X release that is of course a 20th anniversary movie, and it takes place 20 years after the show. This is a story about how time changes things in unexpected ways, and the Abba Rangers banding together to fight once again. In this new, modern era, the public is much less accepting of the Abba Rangers, and they frequently have to answer for their actions and motivations. And this movie explores what would happen if the world wasn't as accepting of the Abba Rangers' brand of vigilante justice. We also are introduced to Abared's Cho Abare Max form, which looks freaking awesome in my opinion. And this movie came out fairly recently, so it might be kind of a recency bias, but I love me some Abba Ranger, and to see them reuniting as middle-aged warriors kicking ass is something pretty cool.
Fair enough. Okay, what's this one like?
Next up at number 6 is Gavin vs. Deca Ranger. This was a V-Cinema release, but it actually had a very limited theater run prior to being released on home media. Just like the Gavin team up with Gokaiger, this movie feels like a big budget production, and you'll probably want to pop some popcorn for it. Geki, also known as Gavin, is investigating a deal with Mad Gallant when he decides to not wait for the fire squad and attack on his own before he is defeated and his partner Shelly seemingly killed in action at the same time. At the same time, the Rangers investigate a trend of vampiric killings with bite marks present on the victims' necks, and Umiko and Sin are getting married. Everything with Deca Ranger is pretty much good in my opinion. Like the cast here just exudes personality and charisma, so like you could put them in anything and it'd probably be good. And these plot points that I laid out for you
I think you mentioned that before.
might seem a bit random, but it actually works really well, and this was another great show to put Gavin with. When they put him with Gokaiger, they both have that space theme going for them, but whenever they put him with Deca Ranger, clearly the thing that they have in common is law enforcement and a sense of justice. Next up at number 5, we have Comeback Samurai Sentai Shinkenger Special Act. And this is a V-Cinema release that takes place between episodes 35 and 44 of Shinkenger. This movie is incredibly strange, but also unbelievably entertaining.
Dang.
It's really comedy focused for the first half, in which Egadosh sends the Rangers to different dimensions that the movie cycles between, and these dimensions are represented by different film genres and styles.
I was worrying about the mask decorations with all the animals. Okay, that makes more sense.
Such as a samurai film, a film where the Rangers are forest animals, a crime drama, and even more. This movie goes through a lot of different settings and styles that you wouldn't expect, and we even get to see Ginta in a sushi showdown inside of the Old West. Eventually, this movie would become more like a traditional Shinkenger project to send everybody home happy, but the first half of this movie, where it's in its peak weirdness, is definitely where it shines.
Jesus.
Next up at number 4 is the Hurricaneger 20th Anniversary. This is a VSA Next release, and it's a 20th anniversary release of Hurricaneger, obviously. For this one though, they did something completely different. This movie takes place in the Edo period of Japan, and the sets, costumes, and props look authentic, at least as far as I could tell, and I found it really cool that they did something other than just the same thing again, but older. We start with the predecessors of the Hurricanegers and the Go-Raigers engaged in conflict over the protection of Princess Teruhime and the Ascension Stone that she possesses. This stone can supposedly lead to the world's destruction because, of course, she is pursued by Oiranda, who is a pretty cool villain, and Teruhime goes to some extreme lengths to keep Oiranda from getting the stone. Oh, she'll get it back. Eventually, this period...
I thought, oh, she'll get it back.
Jeez. Rangers are introduced to the Rangers from modern day, and it's really entertaining to see these characters from both time periods interact with each other, and how the Edo period characters are blown away by the technology and Henshin ability of the Hurricanegers. Like they've never even seen electricity, and now they have Henshining heroes in front of them. It's gotta be pretty mind-blowing. I really hope that we get a 30th anniversary movie in the future. That would be awesome.
Sounds like it.
Next up at number 3 is 10 Gokaiger. This is a VSA Next release and the 10th anniversary of Gokaiger. 10 years in the future, the Sentai fight against each other in the Super Sentai Derby Coliseum due to the utilization of the Ranger keys, and the public, both young and old, bet on these fights. Since we last saw them, the Gokaigers have gone their separate ways over the years, and Captain Marvelous looks to take down this public gambling operation, while Guy, or Gokai Silver, opposes him and supports the Ranger battle. Marvelous even chooses to fight 100 other Rangers, with the stipulation that if he loses, he will lose his key, but if he wins, he gets all the other keys. But it's revealed that the organization running these battles isn't exactly on the up and up, and the Rangers eventually join together and treat us to the fan service we all came for. Gokaiger is insanely popular, and it is awesome to see how they've changed. Next up at number 2 is the Deca Ranger 10th Anniversary. This is a V-Cinema release that takes place 10 years after the events of the show, obviously. Since the show, the Rangers have gone different paths, and the SPD headquarters have been moved underground. Doggy Kruger has been injured in the line of duty, putting him in critical condition, and Kruger has also been branded an alienizer now and has been charged with multiple crimes. While Kite Riley is now overseeing the operation of the Deca Rangers with a ruthless and corrupt agenda that will cause our heroes to band together and fight once again to prove Doggy Kruger's innocence and purge the corruption at headquarters.
ジャスミンはエスパーである。その手を通して人の心が読み取れるのだ。
Since we saw them last, Vaughn has been traveling the galaxy with Fire Squad, Jasmine got married and had a kid, and they were replaced within the squad by Neo Deca Red and Neo Deca Yellow, who serve as a source of corruption from within the team and kind of just act like crooked cops. This is a cool conspiracy story that really showcases the detective skills of the team here, as well as Umiko's desire to find out the truth and to push on even when it would be way easier to give up. We of course have a ton of nostalgia because it's an anniversary movie, but this is a legitimately good mystery story, and it's super satisfying how Umiko starts figuring things out towards the end. Deca Ranger is a 10 out of 10 season, and that tradition of quality continued into this film. Watching this made me wish that we had a Deca Ranger / Kamen Rider Double crossover movie. Toei, please? Please?
Careful, dude. Your nerd is showing.
And my number one most favorite Super Sentai movie of all time. Like, this is the movie, if you walk up to me on the street and say, hey Acrimony, give me one Super Sentai movie to watch, this is the one I'm gonna tell you. It is Gokaiger, Goseiger, Super Sentai 199 Hero Great Battle. This is a theatrical release, and it is the 35th anniversary project of the franchise. Like, honestly, if this movie wasn't a theatrical release, it would be a shame. It is just that explosive and epic and jaw-dropping at times. Our lead teams are Goseiger and Gokaiger, but this film features 199 heroes from the previous 34 years of Sentai leading up to Gokaiger, as you'd probably assume by the name. This takes place after the events of Goseiger and between episodes 16 and 17 of Gokaiger. This is an absolutely legendary movie that feels like a big budget celebration of the entire franchise, and it's an absolute must-watch if you're a fan of Super Sentai at all. Like, if you tell me that you're a fan of Sentai and you said you've never seen 199 Hero Great Battle, I'm gonna be like, go watch it. Like, right now.
Oh, you heard the guy. I'm out. I've only ever seen that clip.
There are many Sentai team-ups, but this one feels like a climax to the franchise. Like, something that the entire history of Sentai has been building up to and leading to. Like, it's all been leading to this moment. Which, for a show that has so many seasons, that is insanely impressive to pull off. It just has a big and important vibe that will hook you. We start with a huge battle featuring mini rangers, and I think it's cool that they pretty much gave the audience what they came to see within the first 3 minutes of the movie, which, let's be real, it's tons of rangers fighting. You know, you start up this movie, that's what you're looking for, is tons of rangers fighting. And they give it to you right off the rip. The beginning of this movie kind of just prepares you for the absolute mountain of fan service that you're about to see. After the battle, the Rangers' powers scatter throughout the universe until they fall into the hands of everyone's favorite scallywags, the Gokaigers. The Goseigers take offense to the Gokaigers possessing their powers, snatching the keys out of the Gokaigers' hands, and attempting to take back Gosei Knight's key by force, which is something that Captain Marvelous seems pretty entertained by. Zongyak forms an alliance with the Black Cross Army from Gold Ranger, giving our heroes a new threat to battle against, and eventually the Rangers would ally with each other. This movie, of course, features a ton of Rangers in costumes, but we also see a few un-Henshin that we haven't seen in a while, that longtime fans of the franchise will definitely enjoy. I think this is something that sets this movie apart, is that they actually wrote unique stories for some of these returning characters instead of just leaving them in costume. This movie is classic and thrilling and incredible, and I really wish I could have seen it on the big screen. And you know what, guys? I've been watching pretty much nothing but Sentai movies for like a month to make this video. So if you enjoyed it, it would mean tons to me if you would smack the out of that like button. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.
Dang, so now I got a whole list of movies to watch then. Thing is, YouTube ain't gonna support that. Gotta love it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think of trying to handle this, as it were. Trying to make sure it goes well, trying to let me know which movies you want to see, because if I do a reaction, I might have to give it into a Patreon special for that. I might set up a Patreon and get you guys the link to try it out. So yeah, I'll let you know if I do that. Depends on how many likes this videos get, how many comments, requests for them. Like, if you guys support me in doing this, I will do this. I won't be able to do it on YouTube, but I will do this. Alright, you guys take care. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Looking forward to seeing how we continue to grow the channel as we check out more Super Sentai material. You guys take care. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!